already see us? Participants have just dropped down. I just want to see. If you can see us and you can hear us, can you just put a message in the comments for us?
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well.
Yeah. I wonder if we just kick off. I think we're just going to kick off. So, hey, ladies, lovely to have you here. Welcome to the Mindful Mums webinar. This is part one. We're going to be running this webinar over the next 4 weeks, every Thursday at 10 o'clock. My dear friend, wonderful Will Merthyr, the legend, good living guru. He's a 3 times author. I have one of his books right here. I'm actually going to be gifting to a couple of you ladies today that I know are going to be jumping onto the webinar. He's amazing, and I'm going to jump straight into why we're here, because I've been working with Will for some time now, and one thing I've come to realize is that our mindset is absolutely everything. And if we have a healthy mind, we can live a really healthy life. And most of us mums, we spend a lot of time on our to-do list, but the one thing that's not on our to-do list tends to be ourselves, right? So I think it's really important that we learn how to put ourselves first, how to overcome all the struggles that we have, whether it's our limited beliefs, whether it's people pleasing, whether it's overthinking, whether it's doubt, procrastination, whatever it may be, and move past that. Now, Will is wonderful. I'm going to get him to introduce himself because he has worked with many, many women. I first met you, Will, 4 or 5 years ago now?
Might be longer than that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was I was working in network marketing. I won a fantastic event down here in Devon, which was one of the reasons I moved down to Devon. And I met Will. And one of the first things I remember you saying to me, Will, that just stuck with me and has never left me, and that was around our thinking and we're going to talk about it today, but how our thinking leads on to how we feel emotionally. Our feelings lead on to how we act, the action we take or we don't take. And then ultimately, our actions are going to lead on to our results. But can you just introduce yourself for us, Will?
Good morning, Emma. Thank you, Mindful Mums, for having me. And I'm really excited genuinely with this, because I've coached a lot of mums over the years. And, everyone from a startup at home mother that's just launched her business and trying to do it with 3 children at home, right up to mothers that are working in TV world and influencers, people that you would see every day. MPs, who else? CEOs, busy CEO women. That I coach, and everyone is the same. Everyone is the same underneath, and busy mums are busy mums. And I think what I'm really excited about, we're going to cover on this next 4 weeks, it's not just enough to know this stuff, to understand what's going on. What we've got to do is also give an idea of how we can give you the tools, the real practical tools, so that you can shift your dial, so that you can change your life. Because there is nothing worse in life than knowing what's going on and why it's happening and still not doing anything about it. So what we're going to do is teach you the tools. I'm lucky, 5 daughters. I can't believe it myself. From their 20s and 30s, all left home, thankfully now. But yeah, I think, why are we coaching now? We are coaching the mindset, because if you don't change your mindset, and what do I mean by mindset? I mean kind of your thoughts and feelings. So, when people talk about mind, they often think of the brain, of how I think. Well, no, our mind is actually our body, because emotions reside in the body. So when I talk about mindset, I'm talking about thoughts in the head and feelings in the body. So when we're going to be covering next week, we're going to be covering overthinking. Well, that's in the head. Overwhelm, as we know, Emma, is in the body. And I think the reason that I coach 80 to 90% of women is that growing up with women, my father was an absent father. He was not a bad father, but he liked drink a bit too much, and his friends, and putting them ahead of the family. So I grew up with a lot of women, and then later I ended up having 5 daughters, even our granddaughters. We haven't got any grandsons yet.
We
But it
love the
all seems to,
girls.
we love the girls. And so, you know, and I think that is the reason I coach so much of a big percentage of my client base around the world, is that I've got a good feminine energy, I've got a good balance, and I know a lot about emotions. So what we're going to do is me and Emma are really going to go and we're really going to share that, aren't we, Emma?
Definitely. And I feel like what us mums need, I want to hold everybody's hand. I know it's virtually, but as if I'm there holding your hand, and we're going to go on a journey together, because it is a journey, Will, right? It's
Yeah.
like, it's one step at a time, and sometimes you might take a couple of steps back, which is fine, but then we're going to support each other, nurture each other, and we're going to go on this journey. And I feel, Will, as well, when I've worked with you in the past, it's guidance. It's not like the finger pointing saying you have to do this and you have to do that. And that's what I love about this. It's just these tools that you can pick up on, as and when you need them. A lovely way I like to visualize this, Will, and I remember you saying this to me, it's like you've got your backpack, and you've got your backpack on, and in this backpack you've got all of these little tools, things that you could do, that, you know, when you hit a point, as us mums do, where we're overthinking, you know, you literally get out of bed one morning, you stump your toe, and the rest of the day just seems to go pear-shaped. You can go into this backpack and you can pick out one of these tools that you know is just going to sort of center you in a way and just bring you back down and ease you down, calm you down, make you take a deep breath, so you're ready to take on maybe what the next challenge, is to come. So
I mean,
I
that's a
love
good way of
that.
saying it. That's a brilliant way to say it. I use it also, as well as the backpack, there's a tool belt. So
Tool
we are
belt,
going to
yeah.
give you, in the next 4 weeks, we're going to give you a tool belt, and
Mm.
we're going to give you all the tools that universities, colleges, school, whatever your path was and is, you might be on that path still. We're going to give you the tools that education never gave you. And this is just, it blows my mind that we're not taught how to deal with our mindset. We're not taught to deal with our emotions, how to build resilience and bounce back. We're not taught. Every client I've ever taught, however high they've gone in the world, and you will know a lot of these people, you see them on TV and on your Instagram every day, we are not taught how to deal with the inner critic. And the inner critic, if you don't get a grip of it, the inner critic is going to smash your inner world up. So we're going to
Yes.
talk, you know this, I mean, I can see you nodding.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and the inner critic is something we've got to get a grip of, because if we don't, then fear will ravage us from the inside. So we're going to go right through the thinking processes. We're going to tell you and show you the impacts of when we're tired. And because when we're tired is when we tend to make the big mistakes. When we're tired and exhausted and burnt out is when we tend to not want to give ourselves the much needed replenishment time that we need to repair, to step back, take a moment, and then go again.
Yeah, love that. I love that. So let's kick off with one of the first questions that I know is something I ask myself, and I know is something that so many mums do all of the time. And sorry, I do all of the time. And that's doubt. So one of the first things I thought would be great to kick off when it comes to the Mindful Mums webinar, I was asking myself, right, what is it? Where is it that we get stuck straight away? And it tends to be this doubt where we feel so doubtful. We doubt ourselves, we doubt the way that we think. We're sort of asking ourselves, why am I feeling this way? Why haven't I got this confidence, or why haven't I got this courage or this ability just to go after the things that I know I want? What can we do, or why do we doubt ourselves? What's going on?
Right. We're never going to cover it properly because there's too much, but you could do a whole session on just doubt. But what I want everyone to kind of take away, I want certain things, and I hope you're writing this down today, guys, because you know you're not going to always remember stuff, and this is where we're going to talk about the next 4 weeks. We're going to talk about the practice of journaling, because what you need, if you're going to change a behavior that's not working for you, you're going to have to first notice that behavior. Now, if you're running at 100 miles an hour, you're never going to understand where you are. So you can't change anything until you notice it. So the first thing about self-doubt is that just because you're going through self-doubt now, there's nothing wrong with you. It just means that you've made it your program. It means that certain things have happened in the past that have given you this mindset that you are constantly in self-doubt. Now, I know from the amount of people that I've coached, particularly mums, that when your confidence is low and your self-belief is low, guess what? There is what I call kissing cousins. Now, the kissing cousins are self-doubt, self-awareness, self-worth, self-value. So imagine that you're not believing in yourself and you're not very confident in your own abilities. That's like a knock-in kind of domino effect. It will knock down your self-worth. It kind of knocks at yourself. So of course your self-doubt elevates. So what we've got to realize is that there's a combination of things going on here that we need to address, because once you get your confidence and your self-belief up, watch all the other things like self-doubt go down, self-value go up, self-worth go up. So we've got to do two things. We've got to appreciate that it's just a program, and like any program, it can be changed. Because just because you've programmed a bad program that self-doubt seems to now run you're almost like at the wheel, you're in the back seat being hurtled around the city of your life, and basically self-doubt and fear are in the seat, aren't they? They're in the driving seat. And it may feel that you're going to be like that forever. Don't buy into that bullshit of your mind. Because if you've programmed self-doubt, and it just happens that you've got a lot of plates spinning in your life at the moment, a lot of challenges. I mean, I can honestly say this year is the hardest year that all of my clients across the world, all ages, all sectors, particularly women, particularly mothers, it's the hardest year that people have gone through. Why? We thought 2020 and 2021 with the pandemic, what I call in the tunnel, we thought that was going to be the hardest. What we've found out is, and that's why it's kind of shocked us this year, we came out the tunnel earlier this year, Emma, didn't we? Great, blue sky, green grass, festivals are opening again, places are opening, get the masks off, let's get out and live again. What we didn't anticipate or plan for is that as we came out of the tunnel, all those emotions, all that fear, all that anticipation, stress, anxiety that we never dealt with in the tunnel has literally come on our backpack out of the tunnel. So what we're dealing with, anyone that's gone through trauma and extreme trauma, stress, knows what PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is like. What the whole planet has gone through in the last 2.5, 3 years is the biggest mass event of a post-traumatic stress disorder event ever. We have all gone through PTSD. And we've got to appreciate that what we've got to do now, the reason these emotions are coming up to the surface now, is that we didn't have the energy, time, consciousness, ability, awareness to deal with them at the time. We were literally just clinging on to the train, weren't we, as we went through the 2-year pandemic. And now we've come out, we kind of convinced ourselves, hey, sunshine, here we go, blue sky, back to normal. There is no normal. It's no longer there. It's gone. On top of that, the reason this year has kind of thrown us is that we never realized that all those emotions are coming up now. People's overwhelm and overthinking is worse now than it was in 2020 and 2021. Fact. So if you're feeling kind of overwhelmed, why is my self-doubt raging and going bad? Why is my kind of inability to get kind of harmony and balanced and grounded? Why is that harder than ever? Because you're dealing with all the stuff that you didn't deal with in the tunnel. So it's not you. So don't buy into comparison. When you go to the school gate and you see the mother and you think, God, every time I see her, she really feels like she's got her shit together. That 10 minutes that you see her for might be the only 10 minutes that she looks like she's together.
Yeah. And what I'm finding from what you're saying there, Will, is so this has been with everything that's happened over the last couple of years and these emotions that we suppress, this is something that the majority of us, I would say, if that's fair to say, 80% say of the population have probably been doing most of their lives. Would that be
Exactly.
correct to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
or fairly accurate to say? So I know, being a mum myself, like I get triggered really easily. So if something comes up, and I'm sort of diverting a little bit from doubt, but it is doubting myself. But I get really triggered. So if something comes up, something stupid, it could be something really simple. Matt said something, and it triggered me. It's hit a nerve, and I literally, you know, am retaliating as if I've got my gloves on and I'm ready to sort of beat him up, type thing. Um, Now I'm starting to understand, working more so on my mindset, what that could mean, where
Yeah.
that's coming from, if that makes any sense.
Total
And
sense.
why I'm getting so triggered and so frustrated at something that's so simple. And I think this is the beauty of understanding the mind, and understanding what where our thinking leads to, and understanding what you've just said with regards to emotions and things that maybe have happened to us years and years and years ago, or in recent times, of emotions that we've just sort of tried to skip over because we look at everybody else and think, oh, everybody else can manage and everybody else skips over this kind of stuff. Everybody else has got it much worse than what I've got it. That's a typical one. I haven't got it that bad. So we sort of push down these emotions and this upset or this frustration or the guilt or whatever it may be. But at some point, it rears its head, and that tends to be through doubt.
I mean, you're right to link it. It's actually linked. Triggering and self-doubt is linked because what triggering is, and this is going to be the first takeaway tool that I want you guys to kind of remember and really embed. If you are being triggered, it means that there's something in there to work on, right? Every time you are triggered emotionally, because that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Emotion. So don't forget emotion. You're going to hear me talk a lot about this. Emotion is really energy. Emotion, right? Take the French word "émouvre," which means to move energy. Emotion is basically motion,
Mm,
emotion. So energy, emotion. So if you've got lots of trapped, unexpressed, unprocessed, because this is what we're talking about with triggering, it means that there is emotion, which is life force, which is energy, inside of you that you've never dealt with or faced or confronted or healed.
mm,
Emotion from the past, a lot of it is the last 2.5 years because of pandemic, but you're
mm,
spot on, Emma. It's all the stuff of the rest of your life that you never kind of wanted to deal with, never wanted to go there. It was too painful, well, guess what? It's almost like life now is saying to us, now you've spent a lifetime avoiding your pain, avoiding your triggers, avoiding your unprocessed emotion, your unexpressed feelings. Guess what, life? It's going to come for you now and it's going to want you to pay it at the gate. And I think what we've got to
pay
appreciate
attention.
is that we can't spend our lives now running away from uncomfortable emotions, like fear, what we're fearing, doubt, shame, guilt, all the stuff, resentment, remorse, all the stuff from the past is now coming up to be paid at the gate. And I think what we've got to realize is that so much of what is going on now inside of us while we're triggered is not literally what's right happening. Our kids, playing and us shouting at them because we've just lost it, or falling out with our partner over the toilet seat being up, or what I mean. You're laughing there, Emma. Or or
Got my
that's
hand up to that one.
right, right. Falling out with our mother-in-law because they've rung us at the wrong time, or that's not really, that's basically sweating the small stuff. But the reason we are sweating the small stuff and catching every single bomb that's coming at us, every ball that's coming at us, the reason we're doing that is that we're almost at that 98.9% where we're ready to explode. The volcano's ready to go. It's not about the toilet seat. It's not about the mother-in-law ringing us at the wrong time. It's not about the kids because they've spilt some water on the floor. It's the 50 things before
Mm,
emotionally that we never dealt with. And
yeah,
me and you have talked about this before, Emma.
yeah, yeah. So the next question that I have is, how can we change? How can I change how I think to be more positive and optimistic? But I'm going to jump back, because one thing I really wanted you to talk about that I know is so valuable, just so people can get around this, is that the sort of the thinking cycle, the 7 stages. So,
Yeah.
are you happy for me to jump in and
Absolutely brilliant.
share
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
slide? Because I think it's so much, you get it a bit more when you can see the actual slide, and just talk us through it, because this is the one thing, like I say, I remember you teaching us however many years ago, and me going, yeah, I get that now, whereas before I'd never even paid attention to it. Like with regards to my mind, obviously we think things, but I'd never really paid attention to my thoughts. And I'm trying to think who says it. I've lost his name now, but he's always like, stand guard to the door of your mind, in the sense that just be aware, become aware when a thought comes in, especially when it's a thought that's just so limiting and not true. Our thoughts,
Right.
they're not, we think of our thinking, our thoughts as being true, but the majority of our thoughts are they're not true. And we're sort of lying to ourselves. So this I found so valuable. So I'd love you just to explain this so people can really get an understanding of how thoughts lead on to outcomes.
Right. Okay. So the best place to start is, before we go on to the cycle, is, if you can, write down, because this is what we need to come back to. A thought is just a thought, and a thought can be changed. A thought is just a thought, and a thought can be changed. Because the mistake we make is that we believe we are our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. This is something that, if I'm coaching someone as a one-to-one, I'll give an example. Several months ago, I had another new client come on, young mum. Everything in the world seems great. They're on TV most weeks, 6, 7 million followers on Instagram. They think the world, or other people rather, think that the world is at their feet and everything is as good as, again, we're only seeing the shiny bit. I know underneath they're breaking apart. They're kind of folding, their relationships on the edge, their kids are driving them mad. The problem with this particular client was that they made it that their thoughts were who they were. That thoughts of not being good enough, not thin enough, not pretty enough. And what we've got to be careful of is that a thought is only a program. It's only a false program from the past that somehow got in, wormed its way in. I'm talking about the negative thoughts, like, I'm not enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough teacher. I'm not a good enough kind of daughter-in-law. All of these thoughts are just programs. So where we're going to start is that you can see that top left where it says thoughts in red. What we used to do, because I studied a lot on, well, me and my wife Jane studied a lot on behavior change, understanding how habits and behaviors form and how they're broken. And what used to happen for the last several decades is that if you look down sort of to 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we used to spend a lot of time trying to help people to do different actions and change their behaviors and alter their habits, which would give them different results. What we found out, and when I say we, I'm talking about the whole psychology, psychotherapy movement, coaching movement. What we started to, as a movement, started to realize is that, oh my God, if I keep putting a lot of energy and time into changing my actions and my habits and my behaviors, that's great. But a bit like weeds, what we've done, we've kind of mowed the lawn and not pulled the weeds up. And then the weeds have come up again because we've not dealt with the problem, the root problem, which is to pull the weed out. Don't just mow the grass and, wow, looks fantastic for a few days. And then, oh my God, then weeds are coming back stronger. Mow it again, same again, they come back stronger. So what we've got to think of, your thoughts are like a weed in the garden that has got lots of roots right the way down deep. And what we've got to do, we've got to pull the root right up. So what you would do is, number one is, it starts with a thought. Thought is number one. Now, what we don't realize is that the thought will be the fire starter. It's the fuel for your emotion. Now, emotion is the really powerful. If you see that number 2 there in the blue, Emotions are the real powerful force that start to drive you forward. So if you're angry about something and it's just a thought, you're going to say something to someone and it will feel like I don't know, a 3. But if you've built it into a surging, raging emotion and it's in your body where you're seething, when it kind of takes you over, Emma, and kind of, you almost can't get the words out, you're spitting the words and you're so angry and incessant about, something, then it's an emotion and now you're in trouble. Because what you've done is the thought is the spark, the emotion is the chemicals. So what's happening on a neurochemistry point of view is that this is magic, by the way. We should be talking about this with kids in schools, because this is magic chemistry. We are creating something out of nothing, right? The thought is the fire starter, the emotion is the liquid. It is what we call in hormone terms serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine. The bad, not bad, but the more negative line would be adrenaline and cortisol. So when we're angry, what's happening is we've got far too much adrenaline and far too much cortisol in our bloodstream, which is kind of almost like possessing us, taking our body over. Where we're almost like having an out of body experience, especially if we've been triggered. And this is where things like road rage come from. But because what we're doing is the emotions have now got control of us. Now we're in trouble, because the emotions are going to lead to, if you ever look at number 3 in green, they're going to lead to actions. Now, actions are going to drive your behaviors. And when you start behaving in a certain way consistently, you embed it and it becomes an automatic pilot habit. And once it's a habit, it's embedded. And now you're in trouble, because it's now become your character. So, your character then will give you, as you work your way through, see the next one, which is results and outcomes. It will start to give you bad outcomes and results if your habits are bad, if your behaviors are bad. So it's like a domino. See it like a domino effect. That's what we call a behavior pattern. It's a pattern. It's going to give you your life experiences. Now, if you look at that where it says experiences at 9 o'clock in yellow. If you keep getting certain experiences, you could swap that for certain beliefs. If you have certain experiences or beliefs, they then complete the circle, the chain, and they feed into your thoughts. Yes. And off it goes again. I mean, does that kind of make sense, Emma?
It does. And I love what you're saying when we're talking about experiences and you touch on beliefs. Because one thing we spoke about just before we came on, we touched on, and that was the belief. Because I think looking at this for someone for the first time, they're like, wow. I mean, I would be thinking, wow, which is exactly what I thought when you showed it to me. But at the same time, I thought that I was aware of it, but then I walked out of the classroom that day and I still carried on thinking the way I'd always thought. Okay, still had these limiting beliefs and these doubts and these negative thoughts going through my head. But when you touch on beliefs, I think if I could go back those 5 years, whenever it was, and I could have just said to myself, okay, this is incredible and it is an eye opener. But the one belief I need to have walking away from this, because otherwise it can feel quite overwhelming when you see it as clearly as this. The one belief I need to have walking away from this is that I can grow and I can get better. I can improve. I don't have to be, hope. I don't have to be where I am forever if I'm in a really bad place, if I'm overthinking, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm doubting myself. I had a message from one of the ladies that was jumping on today, and she was something had triggered her during the week, and she said, I want to jump on. She said I'll try and watch it back, but if she couldn't get on, but she said something had happened, and she just was really doubting herself. She'd lost confidence, and that caused then her to have that had a knock-on effect on her day. So I suppose it's the belief of, regardless of where you are, regardless of what you're going through, if you can really just get to grips with this stuff, but just on a really sort of at a surface level, just understand it in this sense, but have that belief that you can grow and you can get better. And what you're going through now, which is what you mentioned before, you don't have to be going through that moving forwards. You can change. You have that ability to change.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what I wrote at the beginning of the life book, if you remember when I wrote something under personal development, what I'd love to everyone to realize today is that you will tell yourself, or sorry, a part of your mind with a false belief will tell yourself that you've not got enough time to work on your mindset and to
Mm.
work on your self-development, your personal development. A part of your mind's going to say, who are you, Emma? Who are you, Will? I haven't got the time to do it. Well, have you got the time to mop up all the rubbish that you're going to create anyway? Because this is what happens. If we don't get our mindset in place, which is thoughts and feelings, if we don't control our mind, it will control us. Now, once your thoughts and feelings are controlling you, and you're in the back seat being helped around the city of your life, and it's at the driving wheel, you're really in problems then. Because either you control your mind or it will control you, thoughts will control you. You have got to take control of them. And I think what we've got to do, which is where we're going to talk about kind of journaling as well, which again, this is going to carry through a theme. We can't change anything unless we notice it. How do we notice it? The best way is to use journal practice. Now, I'm not talking about teenage angst. Remember being 14, 15, 16-year-old? We've all been there. That favorite partner, that boy, that girl, whoever you was your first love, your early love, writing down all your angst, how you felt, all the rest of it. That is not journaling. Journaling is see it that it's your personal development mindset improvement book. It's a manual. You can't change anything until you first notice it. So what the journal starts to become, what do you write in there? Because that's the first thing that people always say to us, isn't it, Emma? What do I write in my journal? Well, I'm going to put a post up after this. I'm going to send you a short one-page analysis of journaling. So I won't go into that now. But in a basic thing, journaling is everything to do with how you think, how you feel, what's not working for you, where you think you're self-sabotaging. Ask yourself other questions to go in your journal, like, what am I tolerating too much now? Great word, tolerating. What am I tolerating? Where are all the shoulds now? Like, the minute we start living our life by should, I should do this for my mother-in-law, I should do this for my kid, I should do this. The minute you see that word showing up in your mind, stop, go to your journal, because shoulds, as Jane says, my wife, shoulds are shits. Because the minute we live our life by
Yeah.
right, the
Yeah.
minute we live our life by shoulds, we're
Yeah.
not living authentically.
No. Oh no.
And
I
and
think
and I
as
think, yeah,
yeah.
go on, sorry.
No, go on. Go on.
I was just going to say that the journaling, everything to do with the way you think that's not working for you, the way you feel, where you feel like your emotions are out of kilter, they're out of touch. Let's face it. I coach a lot of women, and I had a lot of girls. So I know that women emotionally will go through, with the menstrual cycles, will go through different moods throughout the month. They will go through different moods throughout the day. We know this. The same if I'm coaching at the other end, women in their 40s, 50s, then it'll be the menopause. Well, I think the menopause is a bigger version, from what I've coached enough people, is almost like a super version of the mini kind of menstrual cycles. It's just
Excellent.
like, it's the cup
Can't
final.
wait.
It's the cup
Yeah.
final, really. We're not going to go there because obviously the age group is not involved there. But I've done a lot of lives with trying to help men leaders understand what women are going through with the menopause. But I don't think we do nearly enough, to understand that from a woman's point of view with her monthly cycles. I often joke with some of my clients, Emma. I don't know if you remember, I can't remember if I've ever done this with you, but I often joke with my women clients that, which version am I, because I coach my clients every 2 weeks, which version am I coaching today? Because I can tell you that I could put each of my women clients in their 20s, 30s, 40s into 3 or 4 versions of themselves. this is just the way it is, and I've kind of accepted that now because of the cycles that a woman goes through that a man won't go through. And I can think the next few years are going to be really about educating a lot of my men, leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, on accepting this process, because some just don't want to even go there because it's inconvenient, isn't it? It's an inconvenient truth. And I think with mothers, mothers trying to get their head together, their mindset together, their emotions together, what you've got to appreciate is that some days 3 or 4 plus might be the best that you can achieve physiologically, emotionally, and that's enough. The minute you try and show up as a 9 or a 10 as a mother, as a business owner, as a wife, as a partner, the minute you keep putting that high standard, oh, I'm not good enough of this, X, dot, 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 the minute I'm not good enough because I'm trying to go for an expectation level of 9 or 10, when physically, because of my cycles, my body and my moods, at best, I'm going to be a really good 5 today. That's what we've got to kind of get into our head.
And one thing you were touching on, because something I hear a lot is the confidence. I haven't got the confidence to do that. I hear that a lot, and I know myself, and even that's what I talk about all of the time. It's like what I do, it's what I try and pride myself on, but I struggle. There's times when I can feel really confident in one area, and then in another area it's just falls to shit. Do you know what I mean? It's a bloody nightmare. But one thing I found with the journaling is it really sort of it just shows you how far you've come. And that's a big thing when it comes to confidence, right? Being able to look back, because we don't ever look back and look at how well we're doing or how far we've come. We're always quick to beat ourselves up and compare ourselves up. Look at what's going on. Maybe those that are doing, we feel or we think are doing better than us, and compare ourselves to them, rather than sort of compare ourselves to the person that we were yesterday or last week or last year or 3 years ago. So I know, like last year, I think it was last year, I was going through a real crappy time. My mum was poorly and it was just devastating me. It was so upsetting. And I journaled about it. And it wasn't until, at the time, and I was writing and writing and writing all these feelings that I had going on and these things that were going in my head, and these the pain I even felt in my body and stuff. But then I was able to now look back at that and go, my God, look how far I've come. And it's funny because now looking back at that time when I actually thought I was going through something, I was sick, but it all came from here. It all came from where I just lost my shit. I completely lost my mind. That's how it felt. I felt like I'd lost my mind.
Yeah.
So journaling for confidence is such a big thing, because you can reflect and you can look back, and you can just be really proud of yourself for where you've got to at that moment in time.
Yeah. Journaling, me and Jane talk about it. We've run the business for 10 years now. There is not a year. So if you took the top 20 tools that people value the most, there is not a year since we started, and I ask a lot of people, clients, this, that journaling hasn't been at the top of the top 20 tree. So number one, almost like, a top football team that's won the league the last 10 years, journaling will be your best way of monitoring, gauging, staying centered, staying grounded, growing some roots. Keeping your shit together, like you said, is the prime number one aim. So the reason journaling is so effective is that we tell ourselves, all of us, but especially mums, I haven't got time to do anything. I haven't got time to do it. I've got to give to everyone else. If you don't give to yourself first and put your oxygen mask on first, your kids on that plane would eventually suffocate, because the first instinctual thing on a plane, if it was going down, is to put the oxygen mask on their kids, right? Well, you're holding the oxygen mask on your kids, but if you haven't got yours on, you're going to perish, and which means you fall over and their mask comes off, right? So the first thing you do is got to get your stuff together so that you can then help others. And this is the biggest challenge, as we know, Emma, with mothers. The biggest challenge. We believe that we've got to cut everyone else a piece of the pie first. And then if there's any left for me as the mother, oh, great, I've got a little sliver of pie. A lot of the time, there's not even a piece of the pie left. And what we've got to start realizing is that the journal is an essential moment where you grab a coffee, grab 5 minutes, you get in the garden, you go for a walk, you have 5 or 10 minutes where you can just take a moment, stand back, take a deep breath, a couple of breaths, and write down some stuff. Because if you don't stop the insanity, the frenzy, the rushing at 100 miles an hour, if you don't slow that down, you're caught on the habit wheel. And when you're caught on the habit wheel, the carousel, when it's going faster and faster, and that's what it feels like, doesn't it? When our emotions are up, it feels like we're out of control. If you are on that, remember being a kid and the carousel felt like it was going too quick and you could never jump off? Well, imagine that carousel that just gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And that's how we think with our thoughts and our emotions. And if we don't take a moment to cut the feed, to literally cut the fuel pipe, and just take a moment to step back. Now, the biggest tip, just one more thing on the journaling. This is the most effective journaling practice that you do, and it is moving forward. It is a solutions focused way. So what you do, you take a page of your journal, you divide it into 3, top, middle, and bottom, and you literally write down, like, you've had an issue, you've had a problem, you've had an argument with someone, something that in your mind that there's dysfunction there. You're not kind of focusing on 100% and you're a bit feeling down. You're not seeing things clearly. The fog's come up. Go to your journal, because you've got to get it out of your head onto the paper, because then you see it differently. You see it differently. So what you do, take a page of your journal, top, middle, bottom. Now, at the top bit, you literally write down, this is what happened. This is what happened. So you've just had an argument with your mother-in-law. Don't write the whole story. Write a couple of sentences. Write a paragraph. Write 50 words at the top. But literally write the bones of the story that just happened. I fell out with her. She accused me of not being a good enough mother, not a very good partner to her son. And, this is a normal script for some of my clients. And you write down top third, this is what happened. Now, here's the important bit, the middle third, the sandwich, the gold dust. Write down how you felt. This is how I felt. Because the problem with a lot of these issues is that we're not taking the time to stand back and reflect on it. So we kind of blow it up out of proportion, or we don't do anything about it, one end of the scale or the other. But what we've got to do, a lot of the problem is we've got to articulate how we feel, because sometimes we're so enraged, so angry, so kind of, we don't even know how we feel, Emma, do we? It's like, oh my God, So write down, take a moment. If you don't know how you feel, Google emotion wheel, go to Google, put emotion wheel, and you'll see one of these lovely emotion wheels come up.
Yeah.
That will, put that in front of you, and you will be able to cherry pick from about 200 emotions. Core emotions in the middle emotions, extreme emotions. You'll be able to at least write down, say, 3 emotions of how you're really feeling. How did this event with my mother-in-law make me feel? Now, the third bit is the doing bit. The third bit, which is the bottom part of the journal page, is this is what I'm going to do to fix it. This is where I'm going next. This is what I'm going to action. Because if you don't do anything, if you know about it, what happened, and you know how you felt, but you don't do the third bit, it's even worse than not knowing in the first place. At least you knew you were in a big rage. The third bit is literally moving you out of the pain and suffering into action. And the minute you move into action, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing. This is the action steps. This is where you take your power back.
Yes. And I love all of that, because it all comes down to our thinking. If we're thinking about how we're going to resolve this problem rather than thinking about the problem, we're changing the way that we're thinking, which comes back to our will. That's going to, better thinking, more positive thinking is going to lead to the results that we want.
Yeah.
So what I'm really hearing from you, Will, with everything that you're saying, is it's really up to us as mums to be better. Yeah, to do better.
Or to take the reins on your mind. To take the reins on your mind.
But we're in control of that. We've got to do better and give a bit of time to ourselves so that we can be better. Because if we're being better, as in being, rather than the doing as such, but the actual being, we have more to give. We have more to give everybody else.
Yeah. And Jane, my wife, says it all the time. She coaches a lot of women as well. We've got to start with self-care. It
Yes.
all starts, literally, you could say the whole lot of all what we're talking about now starts with self-care, self-love, self-compassion. Because if you're not giving to yourself, you are not going to be in the right mind state to give to others. You think you are.
Yeah.
You think you are. So yeah, we're going to talk about the habit track. I mean, do you want to speak to that first, Emma? Or
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. And I do think, again, I'm trying to be the collective here in how mums are thinking. And I know being a mum myself, but it's like that time. It's exactly what you mentioned. We haven't got the time. But again, that's another thought. It all comes down to that thought. If you're telling yourself you haven't got the time, then you haven't
that's a
got the
belief.
time.
That's a
Yeah,
belief.
that's the belief that you have, and that's what you're working towards continuously.
Yeah.
So it's a case of just, it doesn't need to be, we hear a lot about doing this, doing that, having a morning routine, having an evening routine, all this kind of stuff, which is great if you can manage that. But it doesn't have to be a vast amount of time. It can be 10 minutes a day. It can be, it can be 10 minutes a day. You could give yourself 10 minutes a day by doing something else. And I don't know if you touched on if this is something we spoke about before, but that we're doing something with our time and we need to just reevaluate it. And that's where I think this comes in, doesn't it? The habit tracker.
Yeah. I mean, before we go into this is a really important point. It's all about values and priorities, because what I often do with my clients, I will get them to go on their iPhones and give me how much scrolling time they have gone on social media on their phones.
Mm.
Sometimes people say to me, I've got no time, got no time. How many hours did you say that you went on social media last week? 15 hours?
And
Interesting. You
what's
can
that feeding? What's that feeding, Will? What's the social media stuff
comparison. We
feeding?
know it's all about
Yeah,
comparison.
yeah.
That influencer I was just talking about 10 minutes ago, what she was doing is picking her phone up within 30 seconds of waking up, looking at all the lovely glamorous pictures from the awards, because obviously looking at her peers in TV world, influencer
Mm.
world, she was looking at all of her peers all dressed up, all looking great, all looking fantastic. 60 seconds before, she'd gone into the bathroom, looked at the mirror. Like most of us, we're not great at our first thing in the morning. So she's looked at that image of herself, no makeup on, just woke up, looks like the
Comparison.
wild woman, right?
Yeah.
Goes back to bed. First thing she does, because the kids haven't woke up yet, goes on the phone and looks at 10 of her peers, looking gorgeous, looking thin, looking beautiful. What does that do to comparison? It just doesn't. So what we got her to do, I say we as if I'm like a crowd, what I got her to do is, for the first hour, don't pick your phone up. Once the alarm goes off, don't pick your phone up. Bar it. Because you've got to build your inner castle first for the day before you let the outside world in. And
I
if
mean,
you're letting the
yeah,
outside world in,
it's so easy.
whether it's news or influencers, her peers that she knows, some of them as friends, if she lets that outside world in before she's built her esteem, her worth, her value, got rid of the self-doubts, got rid of the fear, right, okay, off we go, armor on, we're ready. If she lets the inside world, it's like a mind virus and it will get in to the emotion. So, going into this habit tracker now, one statement I would say to everyone who tells themselves they haven't got time, or that part of their mind that tells them they haven't got time, if you don't spend the time creating the life story that you want to, sure as hell you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the life that you don't want. That should hit home between the eyes, because
Mm.
you're putting the time in anyway. But what you're convincing yourself at this end of the scale is you haven't got the time for change, and yet you'll spend hours and hours mopping up all the crap of mistakes and drama and falling down a hole and all of those kind of things. So we have got the time, but we've got to put it down the other end of the scale. And this is where I come on to kind of the habit tracking now, because I'm kind of conscious of the time as well. But what habit tracker does is it holds you to standards, to values. So what you would do is write in your journal a habit tracker. So the way it's kind of set up, the way I kind of I've taught people for a number of years now, is that the first the first three items, 1, 2, and 3 in the top line of your habit tracker are what I call your crucibles. They are things that literally hold you together. They hold you together because if you don't do your standards, like for instance, I know people that number one, if they don't do their regular exercise and their walk in their gym, their life starts to fall apart quickly because that is their,
Mm. That's their
number
thing.
two, yeah, number two, the relationships. Number three, the sleep and the, especially menopause, especially people going through, a big part of their cycle, sleep, as you know, for a woman on a period, will radically, and lack of sleep will radically start to be the fire starters for making bad decisions or for procrastination. So, so for instance, 1, 2, 3, if that is your go-tos, you put that in your top line of your habit tracker. So we all know what I'd like everyone to do, and we can talk about this kind of next week, is go away and give a really good thought and play with your journal as this exercise, takeaway exercise, and look at what you can do as 3 things that are your crucible habits, behaviors daily. It might be a thinking or it might be a doing habit. But what have you got to come back to all the time? Because these are what are going to hold you together. They're your heart place. Now, the second line, 4, 5, and 6, are things that for whatever reason, they've just dropped off. Now, they're good habits and behaviors that you know were working for you. But for whatever reason, busyness, time, you just forgot, you've got to reintroduce them. You've got to reintroduce them and bring them back because you know they serve you. They know you know from the past they're good for you, but they've just dropped off like the penny falls, the amusement arcade. They've just dropped off and you've kind of lost them. We'll get them back because they're going to bring more stability, more foundation, more flourishing, more thriving. Now, the bottom one is what, like it says, 7, 8, and 9, is bad habits and behaviors that deep down in your heart, remember, yourself better than 8.5 other billion people on the planet. You know how your mind works, you know how your emotions work, you know where you're sabotaging yourself. Get real, get authentic, get transparent, and start admitting to yourself what is getting in your way. And ask yourself, what things do I know are not working for me at all, are sabotaging me, that I need to either cut out completely because they're too bad for me and they're bringing me down, they're creating drag, or I need to at least start reducing them. I mean, what would your kind of ones? Is this your ones, Emma?
I've pulled this from your book, but yeah, I mean, I definitely do daily would be exercise. I've got it's a Shakti mat. I get on that every day because I feel it just releases tension in my body. So there's certain things I like to do every day. Getting to bed at a good time. I know for me, if I get to bed too late, I try and get to I do. I get to the gym in the morning, and I enjoy that time before the kids are heading off to school. But obviously, if I get to bed too late, I struggle to get up and get to the gym in the morning. So it's all just a cycle. For me, alcohol, and I put that one on there because it's a big one for me. I love to socialize. I love being with my friends, but too much alcohol makes me feel crap. And I struggle, and I don't know if it's just becoming because I'm getting that bit older, but it's like a couple of days in, I've got a hangover for maybe 2 or 3 days, and I feel like absolute shit. I've got no motivation. I feel anxious in my tummy. Like I feel like I get a knot in my stomach. So I limit it as much as I can. I don't completely cut it out because I enjoy seeing friends and having fun. But I think the key thing is just being aware of the things that lift you up, and being aware of the things and the people actually that bring you down, and then managing your time around those things. So obviously giving more attention to the things that benefit you, and make you feel good, and less attention to the things that don't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said
um,
something brilliant there about people. Sometimes not only will people bring you down, energy vampires, call them, right?
mm,
Not only do people, sometimes ways of thinking and what you do will bring you down. And this is a great little tool to put in your journal as a journal practice again, is take a double page of your journal and write on the left-hand side, inner critic, on the right-hand side, write inner coach, and literally start to catch yourself out on what thoughts are serving you and empowering you and making you feel good. That's inner coach thoughts. And what inner critic thoughts are really starting to bring you down. So, as you put up here, the top 20 of issues that every single one of my clients, whatever age, whatever gender, across the world, whatever
All those
sector,
mums. Yeah. Yeah.
mindful mums,
Yeah.
this top 20, everyone to some degree is suffering or being challenged by these.
Mm, brilliant. So, Will, it's been fabulous. We're going to catch up again next week on Thursday at 10 o'clock. We're going to be talking a bit about overwhelm. We are going to be talking about overwhelm, overthinking, and jumping back to that, the habits of when it comes to thinking. We're going to be talking about destructive behaviors. Um, these top 20, like Will mentioned, this is all stuff that all of us mums are struggling with. And I think these are the topics we're going to base the next 4 weeks around these topics: fearing other people's opinions, overthinking, overwhelm, anxiety, people pleasing, which so many of us mums do, a lack of drive, a lack of energy, a lack of motivation, self sabotaging,
Massive.
self criticism, and self belief. Just trusting ourselves, believing in ourselves, and following what we our own path rather than trying to mirror somebody else's because we think that looks so good, but at the same time we're mirroring it, but it doesn't feel right because it's not our path. So being able to be quite authentic to who we are. So we're going to go over all these sorts of things over the next few weeks, but the crux of what we're about is mindset. It's mindful mums and being able to master our mind so that in turn we can master our life. So thank you so much for your time, Will. I really appreciate it. And thank
Oh,
you for
brilliant.
everybody that's joined us and for everyone that watches this webinar back.
Oh, I mean, guys, I can't tell you how much committed me and Emma are to this project because, you know, mums have gone through. I can talk to most of my clients. In fact, I was talking to a client, a top event producer today, does a lot of events for big events around the world. And she was saying, I don't know how mums cope. I honestly don't know how mums cope because it is hard enough clinging on and holding your own stuff together at the moment without the added responsibility of being a partner, being a wife, being a mum of 2, 3 more children. I don't know. And, that's why we're so committed, hand on heart, to kind of giving all the best tools that we give with the best people in the world, giving these to mums, through this free webinar so that they can go away and build a foundation. And this is what the thing that we're doing here, Emma, is, if we don't get our mindset right under the surface, the outer will not fall into place. And I think this is why I get a little bit miffed with kind of some of these sort of polished books of, imagine your own life, create your own life story, kind of, manifestation, kind of envisioning books. That is all good stuff that comes later. But if you don't get these foundations right, there is no point you working on manifesting and law of attraction and the rest of it, because this is where the toxins are in the earth. This is where the old programs of fear and self-doubt and resentment that you've not let go of, and guilt from the past, and shame, and I'm not good enough. All this stuff is under the surface like weeds. And if you don't deal with the weeds, the lawn is never going to flourish. And I think what we're going to do in the weeks ahead is give you as much practical tools without kind of bombarding you with a tsunami. We're going to give you enough tools. I mean, this point here of the top 20 is taken from a brochure that I've done up, which I know that Emma's going to send out if she hasn't already, for free. I'm going to send out some stuff on journaling. I'm going to give you access to some other videos on different topics, all for free. I want to share it with you. I want you to kind of grab this and start to work on yourself.
And at the end of the day, I think us mums, we just want what's best for our kids, right? We just want what's best for our kids, but we forget that what's best for our kids is that we need to be our best, because then we can give so much more to them. When we're trying to juggle all these different things, doubting ourselves, it's hard. It's really hard. So I just love this, and I really appreciate all your support and your help with this, Will, as well.
Brilliant. And see you guys next week as well.
We will catch up soon. Thank you for everybody that's joined. I'm seeing participants going up and down, so I don't know what's been going on, and I can see your comments, but I will come back to you all with the link to this, 27-page document that Will's got here, and some other goodies as well. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
And see you next
later,
week.
Will. Take care. Bye.